I've driven down to Las Vegas to visit my friend Dave from Endgame Campers because he's going to help me install 3 BougeRV 100 watt, called Arch 100 flexible solar panels on the top of my camper. But Dave builds campers. He is a pro at this. This is one of his builds that he's done recently. They are the coolest campers on earth. I think he's done 8 or 9 of them, as well as a couple of vans. So he is the pro, checking for cars here, and I'm not when it comes to these kind of things. And he's graciously agreed to help me install solar panels on the top of my rig. I'll introduce you to him. Hey Dave.
Hey Lance, what's going on, buddy?
I sure appreciate your help.
My sweat stains on my shirt.
What do you think it is, about 103 out there?
Yeah, maybe, yeah, probably. Somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah.
It's definitely over 100. It's a little humid too, sorry, Carrie.
I was just going to say, I can't thank you enough for helping me out here. Really appreciate it. We'll kind of cut in and out while we're doing the install, and then after I get it all on the rig, we're going to go camping, and we're going to put them to the test. So,
all right, sounds good.
All right, where do we start?
So we tested the 3 panels. That's a good idea whenever you get panels. I've never had problems with the BougeRV ones, but just before you get them installed, plug them in. You can either put it on a voltmeter, or a lot of the solar generators or power banks have a little gauge that tells you. So we already checked these. These were all producing power as to be expected based on the heat and the solar conditions right now, and they were all consistent, so they're good. So what we did is we flipped them over, we wiped the backside with alcohol. I'll give it probably one more good once over, and then we bought some heavy-duty 2-sided tape. We'd also kind of laid them out as they will be on top of the camper, but we'll put some 2-sided tape, get it all staged, but we won't pull off the other sticky side, and then we'll clean off the top of the camper and we'll start putting them on.
Here's the boxes they came in, nicely packaged. It's the BougeRV Flexible Arch 100, and I've got 3 of them, so I'll have 300 watt potential, and they are flexible. Pretty cool.
And this is the back side, and then a little dusty probably the front side looks like.
Okay, so I crawled up and wiped down the top of the camper with alcohol, and Dave has taped these up. So we're going to go and mount the first one. We are on the roof, and we have installed the 3 panels with the 3M 2-sided mounting tape, and then we're also putting kind of a sealant to keep the wind from getting underneath them.
It's called a Turnabond.
Turnabond, okay. I'm doing whatever Dave tells me to do, and it's looking pretty dang good. How's it coming along?
Yeah, no, I think it's looking good. They're not going to go anywhere. Another real benefit about these is they're super light. I think they only weigh like 4 pounds a piece.
Yeah.
So, I mean, very little impact in terms of weight on the roof, So we're putting the tape on the leading edge. We're going to go ahead and we obviously put tape in between. We want to be careful not to cover the actual solar panel material. Yeah, and this Turnabond tape is really well known in the RV industry. It's really strong stuff. I mean, you can see how thick that is. I mean, this is above and beyond, just standard duct tape.
Okay, we have the panels installed. There's a lot of cables, so I'm going to come back. I'm using Dave's time. He's so graciously generous to help me like this. I can come back after the fact and put more tape and maybe conceal it a little more, but the fact of the matter is there's just a lot of cables, so it is what it is. But they all come together and they all run down, and we're going to go to lunch, and then we'll come back and we'll install the controller and wire it up to the battery bank inside the camper. All right, we have the panels on the truck. We backed the truck up to the back of Dave's garage, and we're now going to connect the panels to the controller and to the battery. So Dave, what are we doing next?
Okay, so as you said, these 2 wires right here are technically live. That's why we have the wire nuts, because we don't want these wires to touch. Lance and I just a few moments ago took our voltmeter and we hooked up to ensure that all the connections are in place. They were producing, what was it,
270 watts.
270 watts, which is really, really good. Typically, solar panels are rated in watts. but they rarely will actually achieve that max rating because that is determined under absolute ideal circumstances. So that's like 70 degrees and, you know, angled just right to an illumination source, the sun. So the fact that these are sitting, you know, these are going to be pretty hot because it's over 100 degrees today, and, you know, they're just basically sitting flat on the roof and they're producing 270 watts. That's very good. But my long-winded point is it's important, as you know, each step that you test the panels and make sure they're producing what they're supposed to be. That way, if there was a bad connection or something, you don't get halfway through the process and mix something up. So the next stage is the solar charge controller. So this is a BougeRV 30 amp solar charge controller. The job of these is to take the energy from the solar panels and convert them into what they call a charge profile that will safely charge the battery that you have. Now, there are a couple different types of battery chemistries, okay? The most common type are what's called AGM. They're basically what we would traditionally know as like a car battery. They just use the cathode and anode kind of sits on a mat of a gel that is the electrolyte. And that's what Lance has in this one. An AGM is going to take a very specific kind of charge profile. But you could also use this surge controller to charge a lithium battery, for example, which would have a different kind of charge profile. You have to program these to make sure that they match your specific kind of battery type. So right now, Lance is going to find where he wants to mount it inside of the camper. His camper was pre-wired to an extent where it has what's called is it a ZAMP?
Yeah, a ZAMP.
A ZAMP plug, which there's free wires on the inside. So he's going to Lance is going to be on the inside figuring out exactly where this will bolt. And then I, on the outside, am going to add in what are called MC4 connectors, which were included with the additional wiring that came with these solar panels. And those will plug into another cord that Lance had bought. That's just one side of it, but this is the cord that plugs into the ZAMP. But we'll show you it all when it's completed. But there you go.
All right, so we mounted the controller right here. We're going to drill a little hole for the wires to come through. The battery is right there. So I could have put it in here, but this gets covered with a cushion. This is all part of a seating arrangement. And I wanted to be able to see what was going on with the charging and be able to access it without having to, you know, open this all up and look inside there. So, all right, there we go. Well, it's about 2 weeks later, and Dave and I are in fact out camping. And I've hiked a little bit away off on my own because I wanted to be able to say a few things out of earshot of Dave. So we are outside of the Cedar Breaks National Monument. On National Forest land, and we're dispersed camping. The camping we'll get to, but what I wanted to tell you is that I went ahead and ordered a BougeRV 200 watt inverter and two 100 watt lithium ion batteries. And I asked Dave, you know, just before we go camping, would you mind if you help me install these? And he came up to my home all the way from Las Vegas, about 2 hours in St. George, and he did just that. We did it together, but really he's the brains behind it all. Several hours installing the inverter and the batteries and getting it all just right. And now I can run my AC off of my own internal camper electrical system. You know, I can't thank you enough, Dave. Thank you so very much. So we're going to, Shadow and I are going to go walking back to the campsite. But before we go down to the campsite, take a look at this view. Over there is your Cedar Breaks National Monument. We're high. We're around 11,000 feet in elevation. That is sandstone and limestone. Look at that. And you know the amazing thing about that, and I know this is a video about solar power, but I got to take a minute because my channel is all about geology and rock hounding and astrophotography, exploring Earth and the cosmos. So I just got to tell you a little bit about that. That enormous mountain there and what we're standing on here, that's all sedimentary That was once an ancient seabed, and here it is, 11,000 feet in elevation. Powerful tectonic forces thrust it up, and then following the tectonic forces that thrust up all of that came volcanic activity. So this whole area has tons of signs of volcanic activity, and then following the volcanic activity came geothermal activity, and geothermal activity brought with it silica, and silica is what agates are made of. And look at this, they're everywhere. These beautiful agates are everywhere. So this is a really special spot that we came to camp at. Well, we're getting to the campsite, and there's Dave. There's Dave's awesome camper that he built. Got to check it out on Endgame Campers. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. Want to help me finalize this review on the solar panels? So
let's do it.
This is really cool because I have a complete self-contained unit here with sufficient power to run not only all the lights and everything like that, but that baby right there. And that really is the key, isn't it, Dave, to be able to run an AC?
Southwest, yeah.
And we ran that for, yesterday, a couple hours.
Yeah.
And no problem at all. And the inverter works just flawlessly. Really happy with it. I'm happy with the whole system. And I've got to tell you, it's a little over my head. The electronics of it are over my head. I would not encourage you to install these things by yourself. Get somebody like a Dave that is Dave doesn't do this for a living, but for all intents and purposes, he's a pro. But there are those that do it for a living. I mean, highly encourage you. Don't take the risks of trying to do it all by yourself. If it's something beyond your capacity. But I happen to have Dave. And Dave, maybe you can give just a little overview of what is all working here and how it interacts.
Yeah, so the solar panels are obviously converting sunlight into energy. I mean, a very simplistic description. And then it comes down to the solar charge controller, and this is a very important component because there's a couple different battery types that are commonly used in campers. AGM and lithium of some form are the most notable ones. And each of those types of battery types have a very specific charge profile. And if that charge profile is not regulated, it can damage the batteries. And that's the job of the solar charge controller here. So that's a very important component. And of course, this particular one has some other monitoring functions. I mean, just on the display here, you can see things like, the input voltage. You can ensure everything is operating. And then this also had a Bluetooth feature, correct?
Yeah, and I can show that. So here we go. Right now, it's pulling 126 watts from the solar panel. And it's about 11 a.m. right now.
Yeah.
And yesterday at about 3 p.m., it was running around 209. So the app was the easy part, and it connected up, and that's great.
Just one other note on install. I mean, in an ideal world, it's ideal that a professional would install. This can be, a system like this can be installed by an individual, but you really need to know what you're doing because there are some serious fire risks, in particular if you don't use a proper gauge of wire and things of that matter, or circuit protection. Because you could, if you didn't know what you're doing and you installed it and you didn't do all the proper things, and it could be a fire hazard. So it's doable. It's just that it's really important that you know what you're doing, and if you have any doubts or anything like that, it's probably leave it to a professional or somebody who's done it a number of times and feels pretty confident with all of those kinds of things.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. So there you have it. I have 300 watts of solar power on the roof. I've got the BougeRV solar controller and then the inverter. And it runs my AC, it runs all the lights, and that's really about the only power I pull. I charge things, charge my laptop and your cell phones and things like that. If I was pulling more, I'd probably go with a larger inverter, but that is more than sufficient for me. and I'm very happy with it. It's really performing flawlessly. So,
You know, and I'll also say this. I mean, neither of us are necessarily trying to be salesmen here, but I've actually been really pleased with the BougeRV products. Lance had showed my truck camper on the way up. I use, it's a different kind of panel than the one that he put on this camper, but I use a BougeRV panel on there. I've used BougeRV refrigerators, so they tend to do pretty good with their products.
thank you. All right, Dave from Endgame Campers, if you want to check out his channel. And we appreciate you watching and hope you join us on future Adventures of Shadow, where we do rock hounding and astrophotography.